The conversation discusses the topic of financial advice in the age of social media and misleading questions. It highlights the issue of financial influencers on social media and the misleading advice they provide. The conversation emphasizes the importance of finding trusted sources and doing thorough research before making financial decisions. It also touches on the need to consider individual goals, risk tolerance, and personal circumstances when seeking financial advice. The conversation concludes with a reminder to be cautious of scams and to seek second opinions from trusted individuals.
Welcome to the show, yeah. It's time to dive right in. Jim and Ryan here, gonna take you on a thrilling spin. Yeah. We're talking finance, psychology, and everything in between. You're ready for some knowledge, gonna change the way you've always been. Learning lots of mastery, yeah, that's the right game. Unlock your potential, never be the same. Join us on this journey, let's spread our wings and fly. Money, minds, and mastery, together we'll touch the sky.
We're live, and I'd like to welcome everyone to the Money Mindset Mastery podcast. I'm your host, Jim, and joining me again is Ryan. Ryan, how are things today?
Wonderful day. Now that the rain has stopped, we're moving on into the rest of summer and the humidity that is going to happen. And with humidity, of course, becomes the influence of people out there that we're going to talk about today, right?
Social influencers.
Yes.
You're giving it away?
Yes. Just jump right into
you're
it.
right. You and I came across a couple of articles over the weekend.
Yep.
And we're combining the two for this episode today. So the title is Financial Advice in the Age of Social Media and Misleading Questions. And we're going to combine the two articles. So the first one here is titled, Most Influencers Will Lose Your Money. Here's Why They've Got So Many Followers Anyway. And then the next article we're going to combine is Stop Asking the Wrong Money Questions.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to start off with financial influencers, and this is kind of funny because at the end of the day, we're doing this on social media, right? We're going to be posting
Absolutely.
this episode on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and all those other wonderful things. But one of the things that you and I have kind of come across many times is clients who have come to us where they've seen something on social media, on TikTok, whatever the platform is, and they ask us about the concept, the product, whatever it might be, and many times it's really a bad idea, or it's not something that they can actually do here in Canada because these are things that are done in the US, for example, and people don't think to kind of filter through some of that information.
Yep.
So the one thing I'm going to maybe start in saying is in the article about the influencers, here's what I'm going to read from there. Is according to a study by the Swiss Finance Institute, only 28% of financial influencers give advice that leads to positive returns, while 56% provide money-losing recommendations, and 16% provide no value at all.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, those that give money-losing advice to their audience have more followers, even though they generate a negative 2.3% monthly return. That's what the study found.
Yep.
What do you say about that?
What I've noticed is as something you said is sometimes it's just not relevant because we're in Canada and it's something coming from the US. Part of it I feel is the reaction to something that happened weeks or months ago, and it just doesn't apply. And I think a lot of the influence, again, it's shock factor, scare factor, things like that. Often it's FOMO, right? Fear of missing out of this great deal, this stock, things like that. And they're not taking into account that every person's individual. I think the person watching is forgetting that it may be particular to some individual people, and that every person is different. Every situation is different, from their income, from their risk tolerance, their ability to spend time doing the research. And as I teach my son often, when it comes to anything, when it comes to information, what are your three sources, right? Go back to what your sources are. And often, a lot of them in the little taglines will say, don't take this as financial advice, right? So you have to read some of the little things that are happening below, and often many of them aren't advisors in any way, shape, or form. It's just something they're trying to capture an audience for. And I think that's where a lot of the influence comes from. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some great ones, and I come to you with some of them going, hey, can we dig deeper into this? Hence why we're sparking this conversation too, of going to a trusted source that is not, sorry for the barbers out there, that not as the barbershop kind of conversation, or something that your uncle or neighbor did, but that you're really listening to 2 to 3 trusted sources to talk about how does this apply to your unique situation, how's it going to affect your family, how's it going to affect your business, things like that. So how does it affect you? So
Yeah, and you know what? You say trusted source, and I don't disagree with you, but I think we're saying that from a perspective of we're a little bit more old fashioned, because here's the thing: the younger generation, their trusted source is what they see online, right? Like I think about my kids and who they follow on social media, and they trust them. So I think just saying follow or go to a trusted source, and I've said the same thing as well in our recordings. And as I think about it now, and I think about social media influences, and I look at my kids and other people that I know, social media is their trusted source, right? So how do we help them with that? Because I'm having a hard time with it. I'm the filter, right? I'm the filter for my kids when it comes to those questions. I'm a filter for our clients when it comes to those questions, but I can only help them if they come to me with the questions. I've known a lot of people after the fact who have gotten in a lot of financial trouble because they followed a trusted source on social media. So I don't know what the answer is to that.
well, I think part of it is having that conversation with people outside. So I think let's look at the medium that you just said, which was, whether it's Instagram. So I would say if you find something on Instagram, then your next source is not Instagram, but it's a source of talking to an advisor or somebody in a different position, doing the research yourself on some sort of news or articling, and doing that deeper dive. So if you're getting a lot of influence from 3 sources that are coming straight directly from it, social media, I'd caution you to look for a different medium for those extra sources. Again, it's dialogue that parents can have with their kids, or kids can have with their friends about, the world around today. Our trusted sources were encyclopedias, and logging into the World Wide Web when it was just starting. So I think there's discussion that needs to happen more openly instead of looking for one medium as your strict source. I think that's a good starting point. And again, I'd love to hear what listeners think about this too, is how do you find 3 trusted sources when it comes to any decision, whether it's financial, whether it's your health, psychological, like who are you using as your trusted sources? And it's a great dialogue to have. So I'd love to hear what other people are doing, business owners, are you going to your tax accountant, your advisor in your bank, and do they have at the same time, do they have the education and know-how to actually and experience to to make the right decision or make the right choice for you when it comes to money, finance, health. So,
Well, I think one of the points you made, I think people actually have to identify or go through a bit of a filtering process.
yeah.
For example, again, I hear a lot of, or I receive question on a lot of strategies, and they are based out of the U.S.
Mhm.
So maybe do some form of filter where you're only looking at some of that content that's in your jurisdiction. First of all, um, you then might want to actually do some research on the individual who's making some of these claims or making some of these recommendations to see what their background is. And I'll guarantee you that a lot of them, they're trying to sell you a book, they're trying to sell you Bitcoin, they're trying to get you to click on a link, right? To maybe purchase something else. It might be a phishing situation. There's so many reasons. And here in Canada, and I can only speak to Ontario, it's easy enough for you to look up, through the OSC or FISRA, if an individual is licensed to offer investments.
Mhm.
So I definitely think before you take action on the recommendation that you saw on social media, you might at least want to do that bit of research and also be skeptical of the point that if they're trying to push a book on, again, some of these things as well. Ryan and I, and when we talked about this when we launched the podcast, one of the things we try not to do is actually give financial advice. We share ideas, we share strategies, things for you to consider. And we don't sit there and say, you can only talk to us if you want to find out more. One of the things we do say is, if you have a trusted advisor, ask them about what we just talked about, right?
Mhm.
And if you don't have a trusted advisor, we'd be more than happy to speak to you if you reach out to us, right?
Mhm.
So I definitely be careful if you're seeing financial advice that's being given on a social media platform.
Yeah.
One that I'm seeing right now a lot of recently, and it is Canadian, is about the strategy of an RSP meltdown,
Yeah.
which is something, is a strategy that's been around for years. It's a valid strategy, but the concern that I have when I see some of these videos is the influencer or the advisor is making it sound like it's the right thing for everybody.
Yeah.
And that's not the case, right? With that type of strategy, as an example, it's a leverage strategy. There's higher risk associated with initiating that strategy. It's not wrong. It just might not be appropriate for certain people at a certain age bracket, right?
Mhm.
So these are things that I'm seeing a lot of. So yeah, just to Ryan, to your point, try to seek out someone who's human, perhaps, in addition to what you've seen on social media. And I think also, and this is going to lead to our next segment, is listen to what that social media influencer is saying or even asking,
Yeah.
right? So, as an example, I'm going to go through some of the questions that if you hear any of these in social media, you might want to step back a little bit. For example, should you buy gold? This might be someone who's pushing gold on the social media, or ETFs, or Apple as a stock, or Nvidia, mutual funds, private equity. There's so many examples. Individual stocks. I mean, look at what happened with GameStop a couple of years ago,
Yeah.
and then it happened, I think, with another stock. So maybe Ryan, let's talk a little bit more about the type of questions that should be asked, or if we are being asked as a person consuming the social media, how we should respond to some of those questions or react to some of those questions.
Well, I think for all of us, it's really understanding your situation, right? What is most important to you? What are your goals, dreams? Finding out a little bit more about uh, what is what is your definition of financial success, right? I think that's a great question to ask because everybody's, you meet one client who just wants a simple life, and that's it. And then there's other clients that want the boat and multiple houses and things like that. So there's different strategies, and you're talking to two very different people. And then we go back to the risk portion that comes. What is your overall objective in the end? Is your objective to put your kids through school? Is the objective to travel? So I think those are really good starting points. And it comes to like the financial success too. Like, we've talked about it. Many people are talking about, oh, my returns are great. It's 22% and 30% and things like that. But, it comes with some stresses when you ask that question too. Is that somebody that's willing to take more risk than the next person, right? And for somebody who will understand sequence of returns, and somebody who knows that if I maintain a certain level of return over a long period of time to reach my goal of retirement, I don't need to chase an up and down market and live through that stress. And that's important for us as advisors to know too, is what does that feel like during a stressful time? What keeps you up at night, right? Is it your financial wellness? Is your mental health? Is it your physical health? Is it a family member? Those are all things that you want to hopefully hear from your advisor when asking and trying to understand a little bit more about you and what your ultimate goal is in the end when it comes to the right questions to ask. At least that's what I've seen and how I connect with people. And it's, do you like taking long walks with your dog, right? Things like that. So what are your interests? So
acid reflux keeps me up at night right now.
Yeah.
So I got to go to a dietitian or something. But the other thing to consider too is if it feels like it's a trendy thing, if it feels like you're being sold something, something else to consider as well. Like, I don't know, a lot of the social media influencers that I come across who give financial advice, they are very dramatic, very act now. This is like the best thing since sliced bread. There might be a Ferrari in the background. Like, they try to present themselves a certain way. And I think that they're just trying to attract people to listen and watch them and take the advice. So again, consider your source. We've always said that throughout the years, is always consider your source.
Yeah.
And it's just like the old days. Like, if it is trendy, how many times does a new episode on HGTV come on when all of a sudden it's profitable to flip houses and do those things, right? And all of a sudden there's an influx of new shows and episodes showing you, how you can flip houses, and then all of a sudden real estate market crashes, and hey, you don't really see a lot of those shows as often. There are more repeats than the new shows, right? Or the old story. I don't know it 100%, but Joe Kennedy apparently was getting his shoes shined the day before the stock market crash of the Great Depression, and the shoe shine boy was giving him stock advice. And that's where Joe Kennedy thanked the shoe shine boy and called his broker and told him to liquidate everything out of the market. And the broker asked why, and he says, if the shoe shine boy is giving advice, it's oversaturated. There's too many people that are in the market, right? So just consider that when you're listening to the social media influencers. So really, the takeaway in all this is don't stop scrolling. Keep scrolling. That's not a problem. But when you see, I guess, these social media influencers, specifically, and I hate to say this, but someone who's 20 years old that really has no experience giving financial advice on how to make millions of dollars, you should kind of step back and question that a little bit.
So it's time to step away from fear of missing out on that and the misinformation that may be happening with them. And yes, I've heard of many of these younger people making millions, but often a lot of it is a show, and you can research and do that on the backside of all these people that say that they're making millions. There's some great information via YouTube, via articles that have been written about the way they get more influencers is by having fake and paying for the influencing and showing that you could very easily pay to have a bunch of followers, which creates a momentum of people feeling like, oh, the herd behavior of following the herd, and that fear of missing out. So I think there has to be something with the tone and the authenticity that you see in some individuals. And if they don't feel authentic, then trust your gut, right? Trust your gut. Start using your brain, and then hopefully somewhere in between you land the right information that help you make a more informed decision of whether, as you said, should I buy X product? And again, I like to go back to what you just said, which was, that sales driven nature of everything is about sales, instead of what's right for you, instead of putting more money out there that could be used to help you achieve your goal in a different way. Pyramid schemes, they're all back in action again. The prince from Egypt is making his phone call rounds again. There's so many of them to be influenced by. So, yeah.
Yeah, we've come across a couple in person from people who were being defrauded from what they saw on social media, and my fear is for some of the older clients. Like I remember there have been a few occasions where I've had a client, who would call me or email me saying, "Hey, like I think I want to go ahead and put all my money into Bitcoin or gold or whatever," and I ask them why, and they're like, "Oh, well, I just saw an article and so said that they're putting all their money into Bitcoin," and it could be a politician, could be an actor, a musician, whomever their trusted person is of influence, right?
Yeah.
And I'll ask them to forward me the article, and sure enough, it looks like it's a Toronto Star article, legitimately written by someone at the Toronto Star, with quotes from this individual, again, could be politician. And then when you hover over the link that they encourage you to click, you can see that it's leading you to a Bitcoin platform or another platform.
Yeah.
And I have to go back to the clients and say to them, like, this is a phishing scam.
Yeah.
So, but they honestly trust and believe that, well, this is the Toronto Star, and it's someone that I know in the media that I trust. There's no way that they would defraud me, but it's actually not them. It's someone else presenting themselves as them.
Yeah.
Right? So if you have any questions, I mean, I encourage our clients to continue on referring us to these situations if they come across and ask questions. Like, I'm more than happy to walk people through to determine if it is something that's valid or not valid.
Yeah.
So yeah, just feel free to reach out to us on if you come across those situations, or as Ryan and I said, your trusted human individual could be, again, your parent, your friend, whoever. Reach out to them and maybe get a second opinion as well.
Yeah, I think algorithms and AI are becoming more and more of a impact on our day to day. There's a very scary video of people at a movie theater, and somebody's gone and pulled all the information from their Instagram and put together like a video of their child, right? And the voice and everything. So it's important that you understand the algorithms that are out there that will continuously show you the same information, and that a lot of these programs too can be data collecting. Data information is of value, and making sure that you're not on those lists, to make sure you're protecting yourself, and then that you're asking the questions. And I think one of the big things to be aware of too is like, it can happen to anybody, and it has happened to a lot of people. And the more we talk about it, the more we can be more aware and protect each other from some of the things that are going on out there, instead of being ashamed of it and going through it and potentially losing out on thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and putting yourself at risk for further. So I would challenge everybody out there to make sure that this doesn't happen to you, or potentially, a parent, especially, because that's often that we run into, as you just said, is our older clients are being scammed through some of these mediums that they could well be protected if they had just talked about it. So
I agree. So I think that's really the takeaways, people, is be careful. Don't trust everything that you see online, including us. If you want a second opinion on anything that we talk about, research. That's your job. But if you do want to find out more about us, then you can go on the social media platforms that we just said you might want to try to avoid and getting advice. But once again, we're not giving you advice online. We would be more than happy to do it in person, because every person's situation is different, unique. Every person's risk capacity is very different. No one size fits all solution. It just doesn't exist. So look us up. You can also find us on our website, tvhfinancial.ca. If you have any questions and you want to deal with us directly, you can email us, financial@tvhgroup.ca. And until the next time, everyone, have a wonderful day. Thanks, Ryan.
take care.
Why is it